Started. We have a bit of a quorum. I'm so excited to be here today. I'm Lauren Hobbs. I run marketing and family experience here at Vivi, and I'm joined by Stephanie LeBlanc-Godfrey, who is the founder of Mother AI and also has a big job at Google that she can tell you a little bit about. But she's a tech queen, and we were just chatting about how we met, which was through work a couple years ago, actually at a Future of Work conference. And so we're both kind of nerded out on that idea. And obviously AI has come into the workforce, taken it by storm. Everyone, if they haven't been asked by their manager or mandated by themselves to think about how to optimize their work life with AI, I think that's become very common. But I actually once we knew each other and started following you on LinkedIn, I started really thinking about, okay, whoa, there's this whole other use for AI, and it's in my home life, and it's in my life as a parent and a caregiver, and a wife and a sister and just a person in this world. And so that was where the idea for this webinar was born, and we've had just such a great response. So thank you, everyone who submitted questions and for being here. I'm going to let Stephanie introduce herself a little bit. And for those of you who are not familiar with Vivi, I think I see some Vivi parents on the webinar, which is awesome. But for those of you who are dialing in from further afield or who are not familiar with Vivi, we are a network of schools in New York for children ages 0 to 5. We have 11 schools in New York, Westchester, and Brooklyn. And then we also partner with companies to make childcare and early learning available as a benefit. So with the intention of keeping more parents in the workforce. So we are on a mission to make lives as parents and caregivers easier and more affordable. And AI can certainly help us with that, which Stephanie is here to tell us about. And so I'm so excited to dive into this. And we have about 45 minutes together. We're going to spend the first 30 minutes going through some questions and a really cool demo that Stephanie's going to lead. And then we'll leave certainly a lot of room for questions at the end, some of which were submitted at the pre-webinar, but anything that you want to dive more into, please put it in the chat and we'll get going. So Stephanie, I'd love to just have you start with like a quick intro of how you got this idea and where you're coming from, both as, a mom and a professional.
Yeah, so I started Mother AI about 15 months ago now. And, it was right off of the heels of like ChatGPT being big, Bard had come out. And so my husband would always, as we're having conversations, be like, "Ooh, let's see what like the chatbot says." And I was like, "No, I don't. What is a chatbot? Like, I don't know, not interested." And so he'd always be like, "Come on, like, let's see, like, there's this new cool thing." And I'm a self-identified techie, like new phone, like all the gadgets. But when it came to that, I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I
And I
know.
don't have
I
the
think it was
time to
very
figure it out.
overwhelming at first. I had the same reaction. I was like, no new tools. I can't.
Right, no new tools. And so, and it's crazy because like the media swirl has been around AI, has been focused on like business growth and content creation,
Yeah.
loss of all jobs and existential crisis. And so for me, I was like, I'm just trying to like do
Get through
well at
the
my
day.
job, raise these kids. Like, I don't know, I don't see how I fit into that.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
changing point was when my kids, who were fifth and seventh grade at the time, came home and started talking about it. They're like, "Yeah, these kids are saying that they use it. And then, like, our teacher says that it's banned." And then once I heard the banned word, I was like, "Oh, I don't know if banning
Yeah.
technology is the way to go about it." So then I was like, "Oh, crap. All right. This isn't like a TikTok trend. I can't just like stick
Yeah.
my head in the
Yeah.
sand about this. It's not going to go away. I need to figure it out." And I didn't see anyone talking to parents about this. There's lots of information around like general technology, privacy, screen times,
Yeah.
like that sort of thing. But like when it came to this new technology that's just, changing the world quite literally, I didn't see anyone saying like, "And here's how to get through bedtime, and here's how to
Yeah.
figure out what the heck you can make for dinner. And so, I was like, I'm not busy, full-time job, husband, 3 kids. Why not start a
Side biz.
company as well, on this? But it was for me. I'm a consumer of this as well. And
Yeah.
so I know if I need it, that so many
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
people.
Well, I love that you talked about like I think so many of the things that we force ourselves through in this stage are or like really try to think about is because of our kids and they sort of hold up a mirror and realize that we can't just ignore something. We have to deal with it not only for ourselves but for them.
Mhm.
So I'd love to talk a little bit about that idea that your kids brought up, which was I think at first in education especially there was all this fear around it being a shortcut or cheating or et cetera. And but in reality, it's a new foundation for learning and a tool. So how do you think about and how do you talk to your kids about seeing AI as a tool rather than a cheat?
Yeah, so if you're a person of a certain age, you will remember Encyclopedia Britannica. That's how we first did our research projects. Then the computer, again, AOL Instant Messenger, and being able to have access to Ask Jeeves
Gotcha.
back in the day. And so, there's consistently been new technology that brought information closer and closer, to us to be able to navigate, the world, particularly within technology. So, like, there was a thought that the internet would be considered cheating because you didn't go to the library and take out 5 books and figure it out, but you just typed in a couple of words. And so I think AI is in that same space of like, okay, now there's this new technology, this new way of getting information. Now we need to figure out how to use it and integrate it into our, education system.
Yeah,
Because the same thing could be said for the internet. You can just research
absolutely.
and like find your own answer there. So I like minimize that, but it's a huge,
It's
huge
huge. Yeah. And I mean, I
for
think
teachers.
yeah, it is all in the mindset of how you
Yeah.
embrace something new. And I mean, I feel like for our kids, especially, it is about this idea of growth mindset and not being afraid of new things. And their world
Right.
is changing exponentially more rapidly than even ours was, as
Mhm,
it took a
mhm.
while to get from AOL to Jeeves to Google. And
Yeah,
now we're going like at a much rapid clip. And I don't, many of you might have gotten our Vivi newsletter that had this webinar in it, but at the end of it, Jessica, our director of communications, had this quote from Albert Einstein, which I loved, which was, computers are incredibly fast, accurate, and stupid. Human beings are incredibly slow, inaccurate, and brilliant. Together, they are powerful beyond imagination. And that just it gives me like so much hope in that there is this sort of beautiful um combining of and what we can talk to our kids about is that you bring the human side, you bring the ideas to this new tool and it's yours to use and to mold as you see fit.
right.
um
And it's
so
not the AI takeover, and I think the fact
yeah,
that Albert Einstein said that so long ago resonates for where we are with AI, right? The goal
absolutely.
isn't to replace humans, it's to how can we work together. And so I love to say there's no AI without HI. There's no artificial intelligence without human interaction. And
Yeah,
so when we think of it from that mindset, we lessen the fear of it taking over who we are and the best of us in putting, our best foot forward. But quickly going back to the question about cheating, the simplest way to kind of bring your kids in is to share the journey with them. And so
mhm,
our kids, again, are knowing technology from, the moment they're swiping, they're scrolling, they're on tablets, phones, before they can even read and write. And so it's already ingrained in them, this way of life. And so as we're learning about this new technology, which to your point is going at exponential speed, we can look to them for inspiration for their ideas and say, all right, let's sit together and like think through this. And we'll do some of those demos shortly, but that opportunity to go on this journey together because it's new for all of us at the same time will
Yeah.
impact us in different ways, but we can go on it together no matter the age.
Yeah, I love that. Well, shifting gears a little bit to, I mean, there's so much that computers cannot do for us, human interaction, but there are so many human interactions and not enough hours in the day. So talking about mental load and caregiving and how much stress that can create not only for ourselves but for co-caregivers and parents and children and grandparents, et cetera. What are some of the ways that you've seen AI tools help lighten that or help ease some of these little things that can get overwhelming?
Yeah. So as soon as I find out where we can buy like Rosie from the Jetsons, like I will share the link with you all
100%.
because it still can't do laundry for us. It still cannot figure out meals that every single person is going to like on any particular night because we know like those are the two
Well, that
things
changes every day, so yeah.
drives me insane. But there is the mental load. And when I think of it, like follow this visual with me that it's like swimming in waters that are filled with icebergs. And so above the water, you see these little like barbs of ice that represent seemingly innocuous tasks, right? Making dinner, RSVP for the birthday party, sign up for camp. But how many of us like know the behemoth of
Yeah.
thought and planning underneath the waters that goes into each of those tasks? I'm talking about like planning, finance, logistics, execution. So
Yeah.
think of camp, which I know is like the bane of all of our existence. What kind of camp? Where is it? How will we get there? What's the cost? Is it all day or half day? Do they need lunch?
Both my
What
kids or one kid.
both kids, one kid. What are the hours? Are there scheduling conflicts with vacation and on and on? And so the way that I use AI in these instances are twofold. Again, that artificial intelligence and human interaction. And so for chatbots, that is the simplest gateway and entry into utilizing the technology, getting comfortable so that you can feel confident and creative for utilizing it within your home, and it's free, and so it allows me to do like my first round of research,
Yeah.
and so
And
I
so
do.
what's something that you would type, like say you were doing camp, what's something that, and I know we're going to get into system demos, but just
Yes.
people
So
have,
for camp, I do a stream of consciousness data dump. So I
yeah,
know you may have heard of like prompt engineering and prompt frameworks. No, no, no. I talk to AI like it is a friend, like it is a therapist, and I say, here are all the things, the considerations, right? I've got three kids. These are their ages. These are the sports or activities that they're interested in. Hey, we're going on vacation for the first 2 weeks of August, so it needs to not be during that time. And so I just kind of like speak through like all of the things that are top of mind about this and press send. There
yeah,
are misspellings, the sentences aren't like
yeah,
fully formatted, like none of that matters. The technology of large language models is able to understand human conversation. And that's what makes this so
yeah, it's so cool.
revolutionary.
And there's no judgment. There's no like, all right, get to the point.
No judgment that like I only want something that's a whole day because
Yeah,
picking them
yeah.
up at 12 is inconvenient
Yeah,
on
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even
everyone.
that's really interesting because even we know from, whether it's getting into a Facebook chat or talking to a friend or talking to a relative and saying like, well, I need a camp, but it can't be more than X, and you don't really want to say your budget to your friend, or you
Right.
don't want to say like, well, it's like really annoying to pick them up at 3. Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
So you tell
that's going to be
AI that.
different. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the fact that it can just be, it doesn't have to be in this perfect order. It doesn't have to be like it's not like making a pivot table.
Right. It's
Exactly.
not writing an
Doesn't have
email
to be
that's
a thing.
like going to go to your manager, like any of these
Yeah,
things. And so that free form consciousness allows you to kind of get it out on the table. And then AI can then formulate that into a table with like columns. And I'll show you that of like, hey, this camp, and this is the cost, and these are the registration dates, and these are like the dates of the camp that don't conflict with the dates that you provided. Now I've got a short list, and then I can go to the Facebook group and say, hey, they said we should go to ABC camp. Anyone been there before? Because now
yeah,
it already fits my criteria. So
yeah.
now I'm just looking for that, like that
Check
over
mark.
the line
Sure.
referral and recommendation
Yeah,
and like affirmation that like that's the place that I should send my kids to,
yeah,
versus like, you ask a question, you get 50,000 people saying
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all of their thoughts and
Yeah,
things, and then you go and then it's out of your budget
right,
or it
right,
overlaps with your
right. Or they
vacation.
have different parameters than you do. Yeah, I
They
love
have
that.
different
That's
parameters.
so
Yeah.
great. Okay, so that's an amazing research example. And then
Yes.
what about at Vivi? Obviously, we are all about young children, learning and development, milestones. And I know there's a ton of young parents of young kids on here. So what about things like scheduling naps, meals, any routines in the day?
Yeah. So for me, the homework support, the support of our kids' learning journey, in utilizing AI, like that's worth the price of admission. If I use AI for nothing else for the next decade to like get my kids through their like through to college, like I've won.
Yeah.
Because what it does is like a couple of things. It blurs the line of the classroom and the home. So, for example, for math, and I'll give two quick examples. Math, they don't add like we used to. It's different. The language is different. They don't carry the one. It's a completely different world out there, which has its benefits because it means that they're teaching in ways that meets the needs of different types of learners. For us, we're like using language that they're not used to. And so using AI chatbots has allowed me to translate. And so, for instance, when for my even second grader, I would say, hey, how do I add 400 plus 300 using the iReady curriculum?
Mm,
And then it will give me the same language that the teachers use. And so when I'm explaining homework at home or we're doing practice, I'm using language that they're already aware of, that they've already heard before. And so now it's like this seamless, continuous learning journey
mm,
versus this like, my teacher never said it like that. That's not how you do it. It
yeah.
eliminates that part
Yeah.
of the pain points when it comes to helping our kids with homework, and that works. The second is even for reading. And so, we're all like our kids need to read. We need to read every night. We try, no judgment. And figuring out reading levels and like what's the appropriate book. So like for my kids, 3 kids, 8, 12, and 14, we've got a ton of books. And so what I did when I was cleaning out their library was take a picture of the book and then say, hey, what age level is this for? And especially when you get to school, there's like levels, letters. And so you can ask it questions about the books that you have to find out, okay, is this still age appropriate for my child, or have they outgrown it? Great, they've outgrown it because now they're reading, first grade level or at this letter. And so it allows me to do sort of that rigor of like finding what is right, or actually, hey, they really love Dogman books. What are some other character books that would be great for them
Yeah.
to read once we've gotten them through this?
Yeah.
And so it makes those decision factors really quick, and then I could just go on whatever book buyer
Yeah.
and
And are you using ChatGPT for all of this, or what, when you're uploading images, is it a different tool?
yeah, so you can use Gemini and ChatGPT for uploading images and getting information. The big differences between the two is that Gemini is connected to the Google search engine. And so you're able to find and get links, live links to like
Okay.
Amazon to buy the book,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is different from ChatGPT. So for queries where you want links to go outside, or maybe you want like YouTube video connections and like within the Google ecosystem, those things are really great there.
Yeah, yeah. And then I was thinking about scheduling too, and like speaking of like uploading things, like if you have a nap schedule or you have like a schedule from your daycare of what they do, and you want to put it into your weekend and divide up tasks between you and your partner, or you and a babysitter or
Yeah.
whomever, like that could be another.
That's another great part. And again, you can upload it to say, okay, here's what the school is doing. What could a weekend schedule look like? And
Yeah,
again, you just get to give that stream of consciousness of what are the considerations, the parameters, what are the moments that matter for the weekend, and then it can create that for you. And what's
yeah,
great with this, again, I said it's like talking to a friend, which means it talks to you and gives you an output, and then you could say, oh, no, that's actually not what I meant. Here's some
yeah.
more information.
Right.
And
Or
you
like,
get,
let's build in some more downtime,
yes,
or
a
how
dialogue.
about find me an activity that's near this park or whatever.
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah.
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 And so
I love
that dialogue is like critical because when you're
yeah.
doing sort of like a flat search engine, like you're getting articles to things of like what it could look like, but using AI, you get to develop what it will look like, what it
Mhm.
can't be, what it will be for you particularly.
So cool. Um, I think, and that really gets into this next question of there's so much out there I think we all kind of felt already overwhelmed by like the depth and breadth of the internet, and I think when you first encounter it, almost feels like it's expanding it even further of what you could do and where you could go. And so, kind of how I think the conversational aspect of it helps at least me think about how you narrow it to you. But as far as like trustworthiness and safety and that, how do you protect yourself from information that's totally either irrelevant or not safe or not backed or all of those
Yeah.
things?
Yeah. So I am get analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
So the amount of information overload for every parenting topic that you can find 1,000 articles or books to argue like either side of the coin. Then you have Facebook books, Facebook like groups, and then you have AI that's now in the loop that can hallucinate, and so it can literally make up things that don't exist or never happen. So you're like, great, like who do I trust? Where do I go?
Yeah.
The remedy for that is two things. One is teaching ourselves, but also our kids to be critical thinkers. One source doesn't make it true, and it doesn't remove the need for human interaction. So, I was looking for a pediatrician, and so I used a AI chatbot to say, "Hey, give me a list of pediatricians that are less than 5 miles from my house, that are accepting new patients, that take my insurance, that do all of these things," right? And so it gathered all that information that I needed, but then I talked to my mom group about like the bedside manner, the wait times, right? That critical piece, that human element that AI can't give me, or that AI will say, well, hey, it's got 4.8 stars on my Google
Yeah.
review,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah. Say,
and
what
so it
about like
rights the ship.
I'm trying to think about like, we were all in early parenthood. You wake up in the middle of the night and your child has like XYZ rash, or
Our
like they need
best thinking
pregnancy
time.
or something. Like, is there is there a way to use it where if you were I know everyone says don't go to, WebMD, but if you were to go
Don't
to
search.
WebMD, or research something like that, is there a way to say, only send me research backed studies, or only pull from X corner of the internet?
Yes. Yes. And that is the second piece that is amazing that you can do with this. Because now you're saying, like, hey, I want this information, but I also need you to prove yourself.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so give that stream of consciousness, ask your question, and then say, and provide evidence.
Hmm.
Right? So context and asking for evidence. Provide context, ask for evidence. And so that evidence can be like articles, it can be studies, it can be reviews, like whatever is meaningful to you. And again, because it's in this container of the chatbot, like going out there and like searching all the things for you and then bringing you like a comprehensive summary. And
Yeah,
then you get to choose how far down the rabbit hole that you want to go, or whether it's enough information that
yeah,
you're like, okay,
yeah,
I can now make an
yeah.
educated decision about what I do next.
Right. I mean, I think you could even tailor it to, especially with parenting and with, are you interested in baby-led weaning? Are you not? Like, you can sort of orient it towards,
Yeah.
I trust X, Y, and Z authors or pediatricians or parenting experts. Give me advice like in this vein.
Yeah. And even if you don't know where you stand, you can
Yeah,
then ask it. Ask me questions. Actually, before you give me advice, ask me questions about my parenting philosophy so that we're aligned.
yeah.
And it will flow your mind to see
Crazy.
the questions that it will then ask you to like gather pieces to then bring that information to you. And so again, it's a bi-directional conversation. So you can have it ask you questions to get to the
Yeah.
information that you need.
Okay, cool. Well, let's get into some examples because I think sharing a screen and thinking through some of this live would be really interesting for people.
Yes. Okay, so the first one is going to be a fun one. Can you see the screen that I have?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to share all these links after this. But there is Meta made this useful, amazing thing called animated drawings where you can transform all of the lovely pieces of artwork that they bring home and turn it into an animation. And what's great about this is like we read like put it on the wall, do this, swap them out, throw them out without them seeing, like all of these things. And so I'm going to walk through it like real quick. So literally what you do is take a picture and you can upload a photo. I'll just use what they have here. And then you make sure that like all the limbs of whatever they drew is within those blue boxes.
Yeah.
And then if you miss something, you can make sure it gets put in. Then you can give it joints. So you want the fingers to move. You want to give it elbows. You want its eyes that don't exist
So
there
cool.
to move, its legs, its knees. You're giving it this like human-like body. And you can click where you want those nodes to be. And then with your kid, or if they're on their own, on their iPad or a computer or whatever, you can play around with that animation that they made doing all sorts of silly things.
It's so fun. Oh my gosh.
And so imagine like, and then you can save this, you can record your screen, you can do so many things. Oh, did we just break the system?
Yeah, we broke the internet.
What I love about this is like I get to get rid of a lot of that paperwork and they get to animate their stuff and see it come alive. And so it's that creativity that didn't exist prior that we get to see, touch, and feel in this way.
Yeah, so cool.
And so next, tough conversation. So we've all seen and experienced the like kids say the darndest things kind of thing. So uh, earlier this year, we had a really close family member who was going through cancer. And so my 8-year-old at the time was like, hey, mom and dad, what's cancer? And we were like, and so at this point, AI is like in our home. So I have no qualms with like pulling it up on my phone. And so I actually share it here. I said, um, how can I explain what cancer is to my 8-year-old in an age appropriate way using some of his favorite things like Legos? Simple.
Yeah.
The response that it gave back, and I'll share the link here, but basically it said, with Lego pieces, they click within each other. Cancer are misshapen Lego pieces that don't click into the other. And so doctors have to go in and take those misshapen Lego pieces and pull them out so that it can grow cells that then fit into each other.
Amazing.
Mind-blowing. And
Yeah.
so
So
my
cool.
husband and I, we sat there, we were like, all right, let's explain it. And then we gave the Lego example, and he was like, yeah, I get it. And so we're like, okay, next question. What do you need? Like,
Yeah.
let's talk more. And he's like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
Not what I needed.
Completely. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the cool thing about that is you could then prompt it again to say, now explain it to my 11-year-old who might be
Yes.
having, a little bit more deeper feelings or have a little
Mhm.
bit more capacity for, other family members or what have you. And then you could also translate it to what about a 3-year-old and what do they need to know or not need to know.
Right.
And
Right. And then you can go into like, all right, like let's go into videos. Give me like content about how to talk to your kids about cancer if you want to follow up, or what those follow-up conversations could be. But what this allows you to do is get information that is tailored specifically to all the considerations
Mhm.
that your family members have in a way that just doing a search couldn't, that talking
Right.
to
Yeah.
another parent that has a different lived experience couldn't translate that for you. And
Yeah.
so the personalization for it is really the like the selling point in being in integrating it into your
Yeah, I love that
plan.
because like the same Google search might pull up like a blog that was written in
Then you got to read the blog for 5 minutes, and then
1999
still
about,
translate.
here's 10 ways to
Yeah, yeah.
um that's so cool. I love that. Um
And so this then translate from just simplifying any complex topic, whether it's health related, the emotional part. Hey,
yeah,
my kids, like I've got one kid that will talk about the time she got on the bus to the time she is standing in front of me, and
yeah,
one kid who's like, "How's your day?" Fine.
yeah,
One
yeah,
word answers.
yeah.
And so I
Um
use this to like give me 20 questions on how I can get open-ended questions on how I can
yeah,
engage her. And so it
yeah.
allows even for those pieces of getting closer to the human connection through using AI.
Yeah, so cool. Okay, so while we're in your internet, and everyone can see your screen, someone is curious about your home maintenance guide, which I am also.
Yes, that was one of them
Let's go in there.
here. Okay, so hold on. Let me get, I think I did it in this one. So we buy a home. It does not come with any information about like what we need to change and what we need to do. So over the summer, I went through this. I said, simply give me a list of household systems I should check, how often, and in what season. And I was like, think HVAC, filters, dishwasher. And then it gave me this list, and I'm like, holy crap, I didn't know that there was like a thing on my dryer that I'm supposed to clean so that it doesn't catch on fire. Where's that in all of the mortgage paperwork that we filled out? It's not
Yeah,
there. So then I said, put this into a table and include a description of like what needs to be done at what frequency, and then whether I can do it by myself or whether I need to hire a professional. And then when you use this, if you're connected to like the Google ecosystem, then I get to export it into sheets, and then I could print it out. And then I could give this to-do list to someone in the household or a virtual assistant. I used a virtual assistant, and we had like a tear in our screen. And so it's like, all right, that's on the list.
yeah,
Find
yeah.
someone to kind of like take
Well,
it
and you could
over
even,
the
for
line.
things that are professionals, you could even use this to say, okay, find 5 professionals within that have 5
Within
stars.
the area. Yep. And then what their average costs are. And then again, what their review score is. And then you just have all that information right there, that you can kind of like knock these things off of your to-do list. You can have it added to your calendar so that you then get the reminders for all of these things. And now it's a whole, that mental load of that household
Yeah,
thing that you've just spent like maybe an hour or less, quite
yeah. So
honestly.
could you actually say create calendar invites for all of this and send it to?
So there are AI tools that then connect to your calendar to allow you to do this.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. So
Yeah.
what is that? What kind of, we're gonna send out all these links after
Yeah,
this.
so we send it out. So for instance, for the one that I use that I'm using right now is called Duckbill,
Yeah.
getduckbill.com. And so I would forward this to them, and then they create they create all of the calendar invites.
Okay, great. So that's actually a great question and dovetails
Yeah.
with one of these questions, which is free tools versus paid tools, and whether it's ChatGPT's paid version or an extension like Duckbill AI, which is a personal assistant service, or
Mhm.
someone else had a question about ohai.ai. What do you think?
Yes,
How
I
many
use
of these
that
have you
too.
used, and what do you think?
Yeah, so and that's where the analysis paralysis and the overwhelm come
Exactly.
in from. So start with free,
Yeah.
engage with these different tools to like understand, feel confident, and kind of get a sense of like, oh, I do a lot. I use this a lot for like my business around content creation. So the conversations that I have are really long. And so for that, I do pay for the premium service because then it gives me access to like more usage. It doesn't throttle my usage, and so that's my purpose in paying for these chatbots. And then when it comes to the AI tools, there is a small but mighty and growing community of entrepreneurs and startups within the FamTech space, family technology space, that are creating amazing things to help us. So Ojai is one. I get a daily text message every morning of like what my schedule is. And then it will say like, do you need to let anyone know about this volleyball game that you have at 4 o'clock today? And then it will
That's
text them.
incredible.
And so I have been playing around with all of them to understand like what works for me. And I know as working parents, like disposable time to like try a thing is not something that we have a lot of. But the great thing is that there are options to meet the needs that you particularly have. And the great thing is that like I'm trying all of them out and then sharing out like my thoughts and reviews of like this would be good for this sort of like situation versus the other. And so
Yeah,
that's
the
the space that I'm
schedule one,
in.
that's really cool. And that gets at, someone had a question about how would you use AI to help onboard a temporary nanny for a few days, or someone that was filling in on scheduling. And I love that idea of being able to get not only the schedule yourself, but just forward it, because there's so many times when that is over.
Exactly. And that then turns into a fun conversation with AI. So for that, again, I'm talking to it. Hey, I have a temporary nanny that's coming in tomorrow from 9 to 4. Here's the typical schedule that I want to share with them. Ask me questions so I can prepare a document to
Mhm.
onboard them.
Yeah.
And then you're going to create that, and it's going to ask you questions, and it's going to develop it, and you're going to go back and forth and find the thing that makes the most sense. And now you have this for not only this time but then in perpetuity, and then you can always go back to that same
Yeah.
conversation to say like, hey, this has changed.
Yeah,
And
I mean, that's amazing, because it really is like talking to a friend, like, or a coworker, and saying, what am I not thinking of?
yes.
Like, here are the things that and I mean, as a parent and as just a human, you think of, you're like, I feel like I'm always caught without the one thing, but I'm like, look at all the other things that I thought of. And
Yeah, but here's
it's
what I do know. Tell
at
me
the
what
same
I
time.
don't know. Tell me what
Yeah,
I'm not considering that would be really helpful for me to consider
yeah,
to get to this resolution
yeah.
for something.
Amazing. One other example that you had that I think is so interesting, because I'm a very visual person and I love organizing, is taking pictures of things in your home and asking it to reorganize, because this is mind blowing to me
Yeah.
too.
Yes, let me see if I know it's somewhere here. Oh, weed versus plants. So I've got a garden box that I have ignored. And so what I did was I took a picture and also a video, which is why it looks like that sort of like weird file. And I said, I'm working on my garden box. Can you take a look at these pictures and let me know what are weeds to get rid of and what are plants I should keep? Because I do not have a green thumb. I've got 3 kids, not interested. But they say it helps you with your mind. And so I'm trying a thing. And so I went, and then it said, what I love about this, it's like the foreground plant. Oh, you see that vining plant? The vine climbing up seems to be this. While it's not necessarily a weed, it could be very invasive and may need to be managed clearly. You know that tall fern-like plant? And so it's giving me like, it's looking at the picture, making the differentiation and describing what each of those are, and then being able to tell me like, okay, what to do with it. And I'm like, great, seems like it's mostly weeds.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
can I clear them out to start this garden box anew?
Yeah.
And then it just tells me like what the instructions are and like what to do and like all of this.
Yeah. I
And
love
then
it.
same thing. Can you estimate how much mulch I'll need to like cover this area? Like I just going on that like fact finding mission of like how far can I push the AI to help me figure out these components that I have no interest in really, but need to get done. And so I've done this similarly for my pantries. I want this to look like Instagram pretty. How do I like literally that's my text. How do I make this look Instagram pretty? And
Yeah.
then take pictures and then it shows you. And again, if you use like a Gemini or Perplexity, you then can get the links. Here are all
Yeah.
the cute, clear containers for the spices. Here are the labels, like all of that. And you can kind of get to it and figure things out clearer and quicker.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, they could also suggest a assistant to help you actually execute it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's always my
Amazing.
go-to.
Okay, there was another question that we got before the webinar that I absolutely love and I think is so relevant. So it was, I got laid off in January 2023 and haven't been back to work. I feel like I've missed out on the AI revolution while home with my daughter, but it's important for me to learn about both personally and professionally. How can I start to wade in and use AI at home so I can be more comfortable with it when I return to the workforce?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of what we've discussed here are just really easy ways to like find things, scanning your house of like, okay, what can I ask it? And as you've seen from this, and as I keep sharing, stream of consciousness, just share what your question is, give it what confidence. And then once your confidence is built here, then you're like, actually, I need something a little bit more rigorous for this part of my life. And that's where you could then utilize AI tools that maybe like they create your calendar or any of these things. And then there's a slew of free AI trainings that you can use that's given out by a lot of these companies that have built these chatbots that are meant for non-techies, that are meant to be like short and digestible. And so you could start there to kind of see. And again, because AI is such a hot topic, there's lots of
Yeah.
sessions like this with experts like me kind of giving you that space. And so just making it part of your journey to like check in on different events and play with the tools freely so that you can then build that confidence to get creative about ways in which you want to apply it to your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so interesting too, like so much of what we've been talking about, like how work applies to home, but also home applies to work. And I think it is almost like learning part of a new language or just thinking about, okay, I have a new tool in my toolbox. How can I practice and use it as much as I can and fail um
Mhm.
and succeed and then think about all the things that whether it's at home or at work. I usually think about like, okay, what's at the bottom of my to-do list that I really just don't want to do? And how can I make it either like 5 times faster or just sort of like mostly disappear? And I think that applies to so easily to both home and work. And the idea that it can be the inputs can be messy and then the outputs can be very clean. Like it used to be,
Yes.
garbage in, garbage out, and now it's like garbage in, Instagram out,
That's
which is amazing.
a perfect way to put it. Yeah. And then
Um,
even in those moments where you do get garbage out, then you can
refine it.
clear up those things and kind of
Yeah.
skip
Yeah,
the
I think it's been
and
really
right the ship.
interesting for me as a marketer and as a person who, often thinks more in a visual language. Tackling spreadsheets or large data sets can be a little intimidating or just not the thing that I first want to do on my to-do list. And I've found it so amazing that you can literally just cut and copy an entire sheet of something and paste it into here without formatting it. And then it'll in and ask it for, summarize this data or give me 5 things to do with this data, things like that. So
The takeaway is
that's
there's this AI tool that I played around with where, at the beginning of school, you get 50 million like papers from home. And so like I'll take the paper, scan it, and then say like read it to me. So then when I'm in the car, it will like read through those documents or just give me
oh,
like
wow.
a summary of it. And
Yeah.
so, I've got articles here, I've got like papers and like things that I need to fill. And so I just like consolidate them, take pictures, upload them, and then I'm able to on the go kind of read, assess, and then determine like what action needs to happen
Yeah.
next, which is like amazing for
Yeah.
lack of a better
Yeah.
term. I'm
Yeah.
sold on
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. And it,
and the importance of all this, again, there's so much, we're ripe in the opportunities that it has for us to like collapse days of research into hours, to collapse hours of just figuring things out into minutes. But also it allows us to now have a voice in where we want this technology to go, what we want it to look like, because we're users of it. And our kids will experience in ways that we won't in our generation of what AI will look like in our society. And so that's that like additional need for us to be playing with it and understanding it, seeing the pitfalls of it, the hallucinations, the bias, the misinformation, all these things that also come from it as well, right? That like AI is not this like silver bullet
yeah.
to just fix everything, but it helps. And there are
Yeah.
some considerations that we need to have, but we can't have that heavy conversation if we're not like users of it and don't understand it. If we're not
Yeah.
playing in the field, we can't get in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great question from Maggie. For work, are there online courses for how to integrate AI into your job? LinkedIn and Coursera is usually where I recommend people to start.
Yeah, so I think that is a great place to start. I think also asking your HR and learning development teams too, to see what their stance is around AI. And then if they don't have one, either having that conversation or encouraging them to, but also understanding, again, kind of touching on like that privacy stuff, that when you do utilize it for AI, that maybe you take out like personally
Yeah.
identifiable like information, proprietary information, that you can still use it to get the like email that you need or the marketing,
Mhm.
artifact that you need, but without putting the company into a space where you're putting out proprietary information. Because quite honestly, all this information that we are putting on, it's learning from that to help. And so then our information becomes part of the large language model. So if you have concerns there, being a little vague in certain areas that you feel
Yeah.
wary about.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, And yeah, it's interesting to think about like just like you would have a different style of parenting or want to go towards one thing or another at work too. It's like depending on what industry you work in or depending on what your job function is, you can go down so many different rabbit holes in so many different directions. But I mean, even within our small teams, we've been having fun just thinking about like challenging each other to think about how many things could you tick off your to-do list using AI?
Right. And starting small is important, because what we saw when it first came out is like, we're going to get rid of the whole like social media team, marketing team, like, and then a lot of companies quietly have had to backpedal, because
Yeah.
there's like a couple of steps that you have to go to before you go all in. One
Mhm.
is to start small, test and pilot and figure out like what it is that you want to do and how that works with the people that are working in there, to see if you can get the outputs. Two, to your point earlier, garbage in, garbage out. So if you aren't collecting data in the right way, then the garbage that you have collected, it's not going to be able to give you the insights that you would really benefit from if you aren't collecting and keeping your data clean. Three, you have to know what you're testing for and like what does success look like. So
Yeah.
you like implement AI into a thing and you're like, okay, it gave this output, but is that better? Is it the same or is it worse than what it was before? So like
Yeah.
making sure to be able to measure those things so that you can have that. And then that's why the human is so important to be able to audit it, to be able to analyze it, to be able to then right the ship if it's going off course with what you want it to do.
Yeah.
But I love the idea you have like, all right, let's make it like a fun once a week. We're gonna like just have a meeting to kind of play around and see where we can go with this is exactly the right frame of mind. Take it little by little, test and play around, and then you can then figure out what you can institute as a go-to process for your organization.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, I think that's a great place to end. And I know you were going to share a little treat with everyone that we will email the recording of this out afterwards, as well as all of the links that Stephanie mentioned and a guide that she has to share with all of us. So
Yeah, so the guide is like, let's thrive in Q4. We've got the holidays coming up. We just got out of Q3, we're into Q4. And so how can we we're in fall season, so picking, pumpkin picking, all of these things. And so I created about 6 prompts in all of these areas that's going to tell you here's how to plan for that trip, here's how to get through the holidays, here's how to track your accomplishments for Q4 or figure out holiday schedules personally and professionally. And so I've created all these prompts just as a gift in one place that you can play around with, and maybe that's the jumping off
yeah,
point
amazing.
to your journey.
I love that. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome. I know I learned at least 10 new things, I think.
I love
Um,
it. Thank you.
and yeah, thank you everyone for joining us and have an amazing, productive, incredible Q4 and beyond. All
Thanks, everyone.
right, thank you. Bye.